everybody. Welcome to Busy Living Sober, Busy Living Sober, Busy Living with Nick Chermol. Hi, Nick.
Heyo, how you
How
doing?
are you?
Doing good, doing good. We got a little Friday mornings. Can't go wrong getting on a podcast.
It's pretty exciting. I have to say, so I'm going to tell everybody because I love to be honest with my people, my listeners. So Nick doesn't even know who I am. He's never even listened to Busy Living Sober. And he said, yes, he would come on this podcast. He has no idea who the hell I am. He has no idea about anything. And I think it's hysterical. I love that because now you're going to be totally raw. Um, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
But I
I
did,
like talking to new people, especially. I mean, you probably got some wisdom with 17 years. So
yeah,
what's
maybe
the
a
worst
little
that can
bit.
happen?
Yeah, nothing, right? That we could help
Yeah,
somebody. That's all we want to do is help just one person today. Just
yeah.
one. If one person can hear our message and it helps them, then it's amazing. And the reason I reached out is because I do know your mom and I saw all these amazing things being said about you on Facebook. And you're a local Philadelphia boy, and I love that because my oldest went to Haverford very briefly, but my kids grew up right down the street from there and right down the street from you. And I want to know, what has your journey been like? Tell me about what happened, what it's like, and what brought you to where you are today.
All right, let's do it. So I've so basically, like, my story, I feel like started probably pretty similar to a lot of people where I grew up around. Like, I didn't start even drinking or using or anything until I was 17, which, like, it's not like I started when I was like 13, right? I started junior year of high school. A lot of kids kind of start trying stuff around then. And it was exciting. It was a new thing to try, and there was never even a really like a thought about, okay, you got to watch out about drinking, or it was just that was just stuff parents said. But if you want to be cool, right? Like, that's what you did. You went out, you drank, and tried weed and whatever. And then from there, like, I just, obviously fell in love with it. I was like, wow, like, this is what I've been looking for the last 17 years. This stuff is amazing. Because I'm already like a pretty up person in general. So now it's like I got this stuff to fuel me too. Like, that's what I really like, just being up. And so right from then, I really started liking it. And then it was okay and manageable because I was so like involved with sports and extracurriculars and stuff that I never really had time to sort of just, you know, fall back on drinking and stuff. Like, I was always so busy, weekends packed, after school busy until like 6, 7 p.m., 5 days a week. You know how it is. And so it was all manageable, right? Until senior year when I got diagnosed with my heart condition. That basically just ended all of my sports. So I couldn't play sports anymore. And now it's like, for the first time in my life, now I got all this free time. I'm paranoid a little bit and like bummed out about the heart problem, but it's not anything too like threatening, really. It's just a little restrictive. But now it's like, okay, I got all this free time. What the hell am I going to do all day? And that's when I really started going down the path of drinking, you trying drugs, doubling down on drugs, just everything. And that escalated really quickly. This is senior year of high school, and then I got into psychedelics and that world, and then I had a really really bad trip, terrible, and then that really messed me up. So then I kind of recoiled a little bit. I started, like, letting my foot off the gas a little, putting on the brakes. I got a steady job. My uncle gave me a job out in Northeast Philly, and I'm, from the Radnor area, so it's a super long drive, 9 to 5, have to wake up early, not coming home till late. And it was again sort of like high school when I had sports, I had no time really. And so it was like manageable, right, for that time being. But then, I was still, I guess, like, it's always there, right? Like, it doesn't go away. It's a progressive disease. And, like, you might be able to put pause on it for a couple weeks at a time, months at a time, but like, you can't just, you know, take it over. And so that really came through again when I first got to Penn State. So I get to Penn State, and again, like the free time and everything, you know, I mean, obviously you got the party culture, which is huge, but you know, I have a ton of free time, which is something I didn't even think about. I'm like, oh my God, college is going to be so much work. I'm never going to like be able to get over. But, you know, you only have class for so much time in a day. I didn't have a job freshman year. You know, I wasn't in any clubs. So then, boom, just right away, I got really into it. And I got into Adderall, which was that was probably the first step to like really going downhill for me, because weed and alcohol I was managing them. I didn't really like weed that much anyway to begin with. So it was just the booze. But then, you know, I gave up psychedelics for that time being. Okay, but then I started the Adderall, and it started progressing really quickly. That was the first time where I actually did get a little bit scared, because when I first took that Adderall, the first time I was like, this literally is life changing. This is the best thing I've ever tried, you know? And I knew right away, like, how am I going to get this again? How am I going to get this again? So, and Adderall is kind of crazy, right? Because you got all your friends who are prescribed them, especially on a college campus. It can take me like, even like right now, if I wanted to, I could take 30 seconds out of my day to be able to get Adderall, right? It's like buying beer or finding weed. You know, it's one of those easily accessible drugs. So, it started just progressing really quickly, and I just realized like I would tell myself all these things like, okay, I'm only taking it for studying, right? So I would make up a million ways on how I'm going to study, but like, you know, that's not how it really was. And then COVID hit, and then during COVID when I really started going down the rabbit hole of Adderall and like drug use, because school was easy. Like, it's just everyone was on Zoom. Teachers couldn't really like manage kids cheating, like, if I'm going to be honest, you know. So I had a lot, like, I thought I had free time before. Now I got a lot more free time. And that's when the drug use and everything and experimenting started taking over. And that's about spring 2020. And then leading into the summer, I mean, the summer was just basically just a wash. I mean, I didn't go more than a couple of like hours within a day where I wasn't like on something. And if I wasn't on something, I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to get back on some type of drug, back drinking? And then that went into the fall of 2020, and which is sort of the beginning of the end of my drug use and leading up to sobriety. During that fall time, I started trying everything. I would go into cabinets of people's homes, and I would just take drugs out of their cabinet. I wouldn't even read what the label said. I would just go in there and take a drug, whatever. Literally wouldn't even read the name. I'd be like, fuck it, let's see what this does this weekend. It got to that point. Started trying Xanax, ketamine, and you know, those sorts of drugs. And Xanax was, I would say, the end for me, luckily, you know, because sort of like, I guess like a rock bottom was like 2 weeks before I got sober, was like my asshole mindset of the time, the addict mindset, where it's like, you know, I mean, it's so hard, right? Because it's how you don't want to blame yourself for everything, but I mean, you are an asshole, right?
Hmm.
Most of us are
Hmm.
like complete assholes when we're
Hmm.
in use. So my idea for a birthday present was, I'm going to get my girlfriend 25 Adderall pills and 25 Xanax pills as a present. And that's what I got her, thinking like, actually, that's a nice present, you know,
Oh,
because we're going to get high together and take it together.
oh
It's a
my.
Tuesday night. She doesn't want to get high or anything. I took one Adderall pill, and then I woke up 4 days later with no memory and no more pills. Because, you know, what I guess happened was I took the Adderall and then at some point started taking the Xanax and blacked out so intensely that I lost all memory basically over 4 days. And that's what I woke up like, I was really, really scared. I was genuinely like, I'm going to like die soon, because I could have died that week, you know, in those 4 days. And then Another 2 weeks go by where it's just like my first thought is like, okay, I've never been this low before, you know? And I'm like, I got to get out of this low. Like everything's telling me I got to try sobriety, but I'm like, I can't fight this low without drugs. So I'm drinking really, really heavily. I'm taking a lot of Adderall to try to spike myself back up because that Xanax and everything, that combo just crushed me. And then eventually it's December 30th, 2020. I start flipping out on my girlfriend. I'm super drunk, just being an ass. And then she's telling me like all this stuff about like, like you said you were gonna get sober, you didn't get sober, what's up? Like we were talking about this. And then I was really mad at her. My dad walked in, and then when he walked in, I was just so mad at him, right? I'm like, I don't want anybody to break this up. Like this is my moment. Like I'm angry now. And then something kind of just happened where like in me, instead of just releasing that anger, I kind of just gave up. And I told him like I need help. And so the next day, December 31st, was my first day sober, and I've been sober since then. That's the long-winded answer. Hopefully you don't just hopefully it wasn't taking up too much time, but I thought I'd just
Oh my
breeze through
gosh,
it.
Nick, we have to hear your story, because if we don't hear your story, how are we going to relate? And I think it's like that's your own life and how you got to where you are today. And I don't know if you noticed, I was taking notes as I was listening to you, because I don't want to interrupt anybody, by the way, because I think
Okay.
that it's really good to hear, because people will relate to exactly what you were talking about, because the highs and the lows of your voice like told me a lot of things. So I'm going to go back a couple steps.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to that part.
I
Cause yeah,
loved listening. I love hearing it, because, I can relate to that feeling of desperation. I can relate to that depression. I can relate to
yeah,
that. I can't even, I'm going to go back to your heart. So you were
yeah,
an athlete. So you were an athlete. So what sports did you play?
yeah. So like football was my big passion. I was always like, okay, I want to. I was like thinking about maybe playing in college, and it wasn't like a huge deal if I played in college, but it was always something that I liked to do, and weightlifting and everything. But um, yeah, basically with the heart condition, I couldn't play football anymore, and I have to change how I work out and stuff. Just not like the biggest thing in the world, but it's called bicuspid aortic valve. If anybody wants to look into it.
Well, I have to tell you there's a person you have to listen to. His name's Pete Sousa, and he's got the Payoff with
Oh, here we
Pete.
go.
And he actually is from the Philadelphia area as well. And he has a podcast as well. And he went to college, and he didn't realize he went to Carroll, and he ended up playing football at Richmond. And at Richmond, they found the heart. He was playing football for them, and he got a scholarship and everything. And they found his heart condition there, and he could no longer play football. But I had to tell you that, because your stories are very relatable. He's been on my show before. You can hear him on here too, Pete Sousa. It's Payoff with Pete. But the
All
heart
right, cool.
condition, yeah. So he but that really, I know, because I have two sons that play sports, and that must have been a total, like, it's like breaking. I mean, it's like horror. Like you're like, now what? Now what? Now
Yeah,
what? I'm living in Philadelphia. It's not like people are going out and doing all these fun, like, oh, we're all going on hikes at Valley Forge Park. It's not like people are doing that, right? I mean, there's
yeah,
nothing else to do.
yeah. I know. It's just it mainly boiled down, and I think in the long run, I've kind of like looked into this thing. It's called like synthesized happiness. It's like whether or not you create your own happiness or whether or not like things make you genuinely happy. But basically what my point is at the time, right, it was like a huge identification breakdown. It's like I always looked at myself as like that football guy. I varied in and out of being the team captain and stuff. I was, pretty good. And so I was like, now who am I? And I think even just going through that experience has kind of even, built the way for me to make that change as becoming sober, because I was always the super insane drunk guy, like party animal. You know what I mean? Like I was just the one who was loud and doing crazy stuff. And now I realize, I still do crazy stuff and still can be fun even while sober. So like to tie it all back, it's like, while it was pretty crushing at the time, I mean, it really did make me who I am today. Like, so
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't regret any of my past. I don't
Yeah,
regret
right?
any of my partying. I mean, still to this day, I mean, one of the promises, I don't know, do you go to 12-step program? Are you in 12-step or no?
I'm working in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just, do you go to AA meetings sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the promises they say is that you'll no longer regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. And for me, it's so like that. I'm like, that partying girl was really fun. Like I partied till I was 37. I had 3 babies. I was like crazy lady. And I'd be at every party and I'd be having the best time. But now it's like for one, it's really cool to be sober. Did you notice that? Because all these
Yeah.
people are getting sober these days. It's
It
crazy.
is. It is. That was like the most crazy part in the beginning was that's the thing that really was like messing with my head. I'm just thinking, what is everybody gonna think? Like, how am I gonna change my personality and change like all these behavioral patterns that I have? And it's really like, no, actually, dude, like people are gonna think that you're actually cool because you are like just better to be around anyway to begin with, you
It's
know?
amazing. It's so amazing. Oh, I feel like at the beginning, I had that same fear. Like, I'm gonna be a loser. Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna like me. I'm not gonna get invited to parties. Well, there's some parties people don't like to invite me to because I'm of this generation where people still like to get, really drunk and think it's cool. But I'm like, it's not so cool anymore. Like, let's live longer and let's be healthier, right?
Boom. Boom.
Boom. And so
I
tell
mean, yeah,
me that
like at Penn State, right? Like there, I mean, there's tons of people drinking all the time and stuff. Like, but there's just so many other people out there who aren't looking to do that too. It's just a matter of just being able to find, your people. You just make like a slight shift. Like, so I actually had a conversation with one of my friends, and he's not even sober, but I was talking to him about it just to hear what he thinks. Like, you know, I got I'm sober and I still have friends who drink and stuff. So like what, should I cut them off or do I need to drastically like find new friends? And for a lot of people, or maybe some people, I don't really know, they might have to. But for me, what he told me was you have those old friends who have like these characteristics that you don't really identify with anymore. So just don't make new friends that are like those friends. Keep those friends because you can trust them and stuff, and you have a lot of connections if you want to still be in touch with them. But then in the future, look for friends who fit the new person that you're trying to be. It's trying to balance out those things because so many people I feel like talk about, I don't know, whether it comes with friends or just changing your mindset, like so much about being alone. And I really don't find much benefit in just total isolation. I feel like you should go out there and like try to find new friends and new hobbies and do something that scares you is a big like my saying kind of just do something that scares you. So whether
I
it's
love
finding new
that.
friends.
Because they do say change everything, and in the beginning, I did change a lot of things in my first year, but I was also
Yeah.
older than you. I mean, I was older, I was kind of established. I had these 3 kids and a house and all this other crazy stuff that you have as a grown up, as I say, with air parentheses, if anybody's watching, air quotes. And I had that same like, oh my gosh, I have to change everything, but I didn't even know what to like. Like when they say go find something you like, I'm like, wait a minute. All I like to do is get fucked up. I mean, what are you talking about? I like to go to the party. I'm really social like you. I like to be really loud. I'm always there for last call for alcohol. I want to dance on the bar. I want to be crazy. And now I just do that sober. And people are like, are you sure you're sober? I'm like, yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah. No, I get that too. It's like people are like they'll come up to me and we're like, dude, like last night we were all like so fucked up. And I'm like, I actually wasn't. And I went to bed at like a good time and now I feel like energized. It's just crazy. Like I had no idea that I could be this thing that I was trying to chase while I was drunk or using. Like I can be a creative person, a cool person, a loud person, an annoying person, like all those things while sober.
It's so true. And guess what? We get to own it.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah.
get to own it and we
For
get to
better or
pick who
for
we.
worse.
Yes, exactly. So when you were talking about psychedelics, I want to get your thoughts on this
Oh,
because
here we
I'm
go.
again a little bit older. I can tell you honestly, I did mushrooms one time and I had one mushroom and it scared me to death and I never did it again. And anybody else who wanted me to do psychedelics, I'm like, I'm already crazy because I already think, I'm kind of crazy, right? We're crazy. right? Wouldn't you admit? I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what normal is, to be honest, but I'm definitely not normal because who wants
No,
to be
I can
normal?
agree with that.
Right? Because normal to me is Wonder Bread. Because it all every piece of bread, looks the exact same square with the exact perfect crust on it. But I'm multigrain. Like I'm a multigrain bread with lots of bumps and lumps and everything else. And so doing those psychedelics was definitely not in my wheelhouse. But what do you think of people who think that psychedelics are the new wave of helping people get sober? What do you think of that?
Wow. Yeah, no, this has definitely been something I've thought of, and I don't know, because it is kind of funny. It's just, I think, so this is what's going to happen, right? This is what happens to young people when they see a study like that. Oh, psychedelics has a chance to help you, so let's all go alone, all five of us, in the middle of the night and do it. You know what I mean? Where it's like these studies and things that they're trying to do are in very like controlled environments with people who like know what they're doing. So I think there's, in that sense, there's that danger that will probably come, I think. But in terms of just bashing the drug, I tend to like not do that because like the drugs didn't really do this to, like, we went out and took the drugs, or drank the alcohol. And like whether or not the marketing is bad or that's a whole nother story. But I think just the drugs themselves, like, yeah, if there's a way that it could help people, I don't want to be like, oh, I had a bad trip, so now we can't look into this drug anymore, I don't
Yeah.
want to look at it like that. So, and I try to find just like do listen to like what the people who know what they're talking about are saying. Don't just go out there and try psychedelics alone in the woods because you listen to a Joe Rogan podcast and you read
I
a
love that. I love
article.
And Adderall, I think it's really interesting, the Adderall thing. I'm really fascinated by the pill thing because again,
Yeah.
my drug of choice was booze always. And again, I'm older. They did not have people handing out pills and saying, take Adderall when I was in college, right? Nobody. It's like, maybe do you want to, whatever. It was not doing
Man, it's
pills.
like a wonder drug now.
But think about it. Like all these kids get addicted to it at like age 5, right? Because all these parents are like their kids. Now I'm going to tell you a little story. So my oldest son he was diagnosed with ADHD, and he was born in 1996. So he's just a little bit older than you. And they're like, he has ADHD. You're going to have to give him medication. And I was like, no, because there's drug addiction. I mean, there's alcoholism in my family, and under at least the insurance, it all falls underneath the same umbrella, right? It's drugs,
Yeah.
it's alcohol, the whole thing. And I was always too scared to have him get it. And it was like, I'm like, I don't care. He's going to act like a lunatic. And as I would tell the teachers, it's your job. You're the teacher. So you have to make sure that he's entertained. That's why you're the teacher. Okay. If you think he's just going to sit here and act like he's going to sit in a square and listen to you for 30 minutes, tell a story, I couldn't listen to you tell a story to me for 30 minutes. So guess what? Deal with this kid. And they did. But it is crazy how much they're handing this stuff out like it's candy. And it's all about the pharmaceutical companies. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, so I had actually had like, so my ex was from Europe, and she's got like her master's in pharmaceuticals and a PhD in like neuroscience, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So so it's not only European, but she actually like knows the drugs and stuff. And so obviously I'm like asking her about this. And again, like it's not really the drug, right? I don't want to blame the drug because there is like, probably like good stuff with it. But if you look at how they go about testing here and how they do it in Europe, it's so much more strict over in Europe with how willing they
Really?
are to give it out. Yeah, like you have to,
Really?
they test you for, I think, longer, and it's much harder to get it. They're a little more strict with like what they'll do if you get caught like messing around with it and like just measuring your levels and all that. But I mean, it's been a while since I talked to her about it, so I don't know how like straight my facts are, but it's definitely, I'm pretty sure, in the US much easier to get these drugs. And so, you know, I mean, it's just, growing up, I grew up in the era of kids where it was normal for half my, like, it felt like half my class to have an Adderall prescription. Maybe it was only a quarter, but it felt like a lot of kids. It was just so normal. So I didn't even think about taking it as like a party drug. Actually, when I first went up to ask my friend for it, I was like, doesn't this drug like help you stay awake a little bit, like for studying? You know, I actually first took it at a tailgate. So I was like, I'm kind of like down right now. I didn't even think of it being a drug that you would use recreationally. I thought like, okay, it would help me be awake, so I'll take it. And I think in the US, especially with young people, I think there's much less attention put on the idea that this drug could have negative side effects. Whereas it's like, okay, you have ADHD, so now we're doing stimulants, you know? I feel
It's
like it's a much
crazy.
quicker approach to stimulants is what they're doing now.
Now I want to ask you, is there any addiction in your family?
Yeah,
Okay,
classic.
okay, okay. I always have to ask that because I think that that's something we don't talk about. And when you were just mentioning, the
I'm
pills,
the only one who got sober though,
yeah.
to my knowledge.
But hey, you're starting a new trend. I always say, I was just
New
talking to
trend.
somebody, yeah, new trend. I just had another guest on my podcast and she mentioned to me, we affect everybody around us. Not only do we affect them when we're in our addiction, but now that we're sober, I mean, it's like they can't ignore us because we're sitting, we're loud, we're proud. We're like, you know what? This is the way it is. And if you don't want to look at you, that's you, boo boo. As my son Henry always says, you do you, boo boo. And I think that it's so interesting because when I was little, now I was born in 1968, probably closer to your mother's age,
Yeah,
obviously, or your father's
same
age.
year.
Yeah, and I grew up in a house where my parents had these parties and everybody would pick up a drink and I'd always be like, "Oh my God, my mom's so happy now. She's got a drink. She's in a pretty dress. She's having a party. It's so great. I can't wait to be a grown up and drink, right? Because it looks so good. It
Yeah.
looks so good." And now with these pills, I think that now that so many people are taking pharmaceuticals to kids, it looks like, "Oh, it's okay. I can take it." I mean, no, I haven't seen anybody die from this. Like, it's okay,
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely like happening. If you like, I feel like even just me saying that I was addicted to Adderall, I feel like I get some people who are like, all right, buddy, right. You know, like
Yeah.
it's not really even a drug to get addicted to. Like people know it is, but it's kind of like if you say, I feel it's on a similar level to like, oh, I'm addicted to weed. People might be like, all right, then just quit.
Yeah, they don't get
It's
it.
super, yeah, it's super normalized now. And like, it's on the same levels like alcohol, weed, but I would say alcohol, it just has like a little bit more history. So people maybe are more willing to understand that it's bad for you, you know?
Well, the pharmaceutical companies are horrible, as we know. I mean, and as you mentioned, in Europe,
Yeah.
they don't put any of these advertisements on TV. Like they come to America and they're like, wait, what? I mean, you watch a football game and how many ads are there for pharmaceutical drugs? It's insane.
Yeah. No, that is funny. That's only in the US, I think, really.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy. And when all my European friends are like, "You guys hand out drugs?" They're like nobody cares. Nobody does really looks into it. Make sure is this okay to give children? What are the side effects? What's long lasting? What's going to happen? And they don't find out.
Yeah, and it's just people get so super like defensive about it too. It's like, why don't you like let's just like really talk about whether or not it's like that great for the person.
Exactly.
I feel like if you
It
told somebody whose kid has Adderall, like, you know, it might be bad for them, they're gonna get pissed at you. So I usually just avoid that.
Well, I have had people get pissed at me when I tell them that they're like, "I'm going to put my kid on this," and I'm like, "Well, I don't think that's a really good idea because do you know that most of the people that go on that stuff have a better chance of becoming an addict than not?"
Yeah, like I mean you will like if you are like if I started Adderall when I was 5 or whatever age, what you're saying is true. Like I would have been on that and probably would have just amped up my addictive personality way worse. And it's like you can't tell if somebody's addicted until they start trying the drugs, you know? And then when you do it with them at a young age, it's just like I don't even know how you I feel like there's just no way you can tell if somebody's going to be addicted. And so to put somebody on a stimulant when they're that young, I feel like is just, well, then how could you possibly know what they're going to be like at 20 when they might start drinking and stuff? I really have no idea what the science is about all that.
Well,
To me, it seems crazy.
it's crazy. And I think that alcohol, I don't know if you watch Jordan Peterson. Do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, did you see he did it like five, maybe now it's like a week ago. He did something about alcohol. He got sober at 27.
Yeah,
And
I saw that.
did you see that video?
I think I might have saw like clips of it. I don't know if I saw
Okay.
the whole thing, but I think I know what you're
But
talking about.
yeah, it was like 12 minutes long. It wasn't that long, but he talks about how the liquor companies are the ones that are out there telling people it's so hard to get sober. It's so hard. And do you know now there's
Yeah.
this whole group of moms in their 40s, their late 30s, 40s, early 50s that are doing this. They've learned that they're gray area drinkers. So they realize that so they might not be, they don't think an alcoholic because it's an alcoholic, people still think of as like a street urchin, right? They're like, this
Yeah.
person is no good. Or somebody who doesn't drink at all, right? So they say in between is this gray area. And all these people are getting sober from the gray area. It's crazy. There's like a new movement.
Okay. I'm still a little bit confused on what you're talking about, though.
It's
There's a
called
bunch, could you explain one more time?
So it's a thing, these women all over the world. I just had somebody on from Europe, and then I had
Oh,
another,
nice.
I've had people on from all over the world. I feel really, really grateful for being able to do this for as long as I have been. And just finding out that I'm in the top 3%. I had no idea of
Yeah,
podcasters.
money.
I had no idea. Okay. No idea. Somebody's like, what are your analytics? I have no idea. But somebody else went and found out what my analytics were. And they're like, you're in the top 3%. I'm like, but back to the great. So I had these two women on, and they were talking about how they've quit drinking. They've gotten sober, the dictionary term of sober, right? They no longer partake in drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done it by helping each other, not going to AA, not doing the 12 steps, but realizing that they have a drinking problem and they couldn't have one, just like I couldn't have one and I couldn't have 47, right? That was me. I was the
Mm-hmm.
warrior. That phenomenon of craving they talk about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous was me. Like, I remember that. But people don't want to go to AA because it still has a bad connotation, right? People are like, I don't want to do that because it's like, that's for losers. And for me, I had no other choice, right? Because it was like, that's all there was. But now people are getting sober by this gray area. They call it gray area drinking.
Oh, here we go. I never even heard of this. I'll
Now
look
you have to
into
go
it.
look it up. Now you're going to have to go look
Yeah.
it up. It's pretty cool. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that
cool.
sounds cool.
So I want to ask you, how's your spirituality? What is your spirituality like? Do you believe in God? What do you feel like about God and spirituality?
I think I'm like in the area of positive towards spirituality, you know? I think that there's something bigger than us. I think there's something going on that's bigger than us. So that's what I kind of hold on to. But hammering and honing down on any particular like ideology, I'm still looking into. But instinctively, what my mind and body tells me is that no, there's nothing, and everything just kind of just evolved. But I have been working around it and just trying to listen to new perspectives and stuff. So it's kind of where I'm at.
You're just open.
Open to the idea, yeah.
And then do you believe in miracles? And have you ever experienced a miracle?
I'm gonna have to say that again. On that note, my body is leaning more towards no on miracle. Things are just kind of lucky or not lucky.
Okay. So you think it's a coincidence, things that happen in life.
I don't want to believe it's like that, but I don't know. My body just, I don't know. It just tells me that it's like that.
So you
That's
have to
where
get
my
this
mind
book.
goes.
You have to get this book, and it's
Here
called
we go.
Okay, another book. God's Little Winks.
Okay.
So like either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle, right? Either everything is or everything isn't. And it's so interesting because the longer I stay sober, it's like that couldn't have just happened because it was like why did this person come into my life at this time? Like was that just totally random that I walked into a podcast studio and found a producer? I wasn't even there to look for a podcast producer. I was there to look for an art studio. Is that a coincidence or is that a little wink? Think about it.
All right. I'm open
Okay.
to it, so I'll look into it.
I want you, when you figure something out, you have to reach out to me again. I want to have you on again.
Okay.
Okay. So, and now tell us this. So now are you starting your own podcast?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's actually why I'm wearing this kind of like stupid hat.
Okay.
It's the hair day. It's called All Cap No Brim. It's my
Okay.
podcast. So that's another reason why I wanted to hop on, because I wanted to see. I mean, not only do we talk about maybe the same stuff, but it's also, again, you've been doing this for a while. So I'm kind of just also paying attention to how you rock and roll with this.
Yeah.
It's good. You're a fun host. So
Thank you. Thank you. I went to school for this 100 years ago before you were even born. And
you're
then I
really
went and
good.
had babies. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm going to have with this podcast, if anybody wants to reach out to Nick, I'm going to have his social media places where his podcast is and where everybody can get in touch with him. So please reach out to him. You have to promise me you're going to come back on when you
Yeah,
get this whole
definitely.
spirituality. I'd love it. I'd love it. I'd love it. Until
All right.
next time, everybody, keep getting busy, living sober. Bye bye.